There is a moment. It is delicate, like a feather of light, and in it lies freedom. When the feeling ignites within, it often seems that the reaction is already predetermined. Warmth is replaced by sharpness. Anxiety stifles the breath. The voice becomes a mirror of just-born emotion. But between this first impulse and what we will do next lies a space, a small gap, akin to a clearing in the forest after rain, where the air is perceived differently. Allow yourself to notice this clearing. Awareness here does not make noise. It is like the morning wind that touches faces without demanding answers. When this pause is absent, we surrender control to the winds of others' stories, expectations, and reactions. What if we imagine emotion is a wave and you are the shore? The wave comes, casting its stones, fears, grudges, irritations onto the sand. If the shore reacts with a single throw, it loses its shape. It begins to play the role of the wave itself. But if there is a pause, the shore can accept, retreat, move the stone to another place, or leave it on the sand, acknowledging its weight, but not becoming it. It often feels that the pause is weakness, hesitation, avoidance. But within it lies another strength, the ability to choose what we endow with significance. In our world, where everything demands immediacy, responses, evaluations, likes, and instant decisions, the pause becomes a rare resource. It reminds us that not everything deserves our presence. Not every spark should turn into a flame. Notice how the body breathes when you give yourself this small space. The heart calms slightly. Thoughts stop taking the wheel on autopilot. The voice acquires shades rather than screams. Imagine a road in the fog. Without a pause, you drive blindly, following every signal, every reflection of light. With a pause, you turn on the headlights of inner light, not to get there faster, but to see where you truly want to go. Self-defense in this sense is not a block, not a hard defense, but a soft, conscious boundary. It is the ability to allow yourself to feel, to sense, and then choose a response that aligns with your values and inner rhythm. This ability liberates. It liberates from the need to prove one's correctness, from the constant struggle for attention, from the desire to control everything around. When there appears a space between feeling and action, the energy, previously spent on immediate reaction, becomes a resource for conscious choice. It can be directed towards care, towards clear conversation, towards quiet clarity, or it can be preserved for what truly matters. In this space, you do not vanish. You simply become more whole, a calmer observer of your own life. Notice how nature teaches us this. The season changes smoothly. A leaf does not suddenly detach. It lives its life and departs with dignity. Likewise, emotion does not have to dictate an instantaneous response. There is the chance to wait, to breathe, to allow images to settle, and then to choose an action based on clarity, not impulse. To be present with oneself means to have this presence, this gentle line between what comes and what is created. It may seem that the pause robs life of drama, makes it slower, but in reality, it gives depth. In the silence between inhalation and exhalation, meanings and decisions are born that would otherwise remain unnoticed. It is like looking at a lake. When the surface is calm, the bottom is visible. When the waves churn, everything is distorted. Allow yourself this calm mirror. It brings clarity and freedom. Trust this little slowing down. Let this moment be your key. a key not to control the world, but to freedom within yourself, to the softest and clearest self-defense. Breathe, notice, allow yourself space. Now is a moment when the meaning of pause becomes especially valuable. The world is moving faster than ever. News piles on top of each other. Opinions multiply, and the space for inner silence is shrinking. In this hurry, emotions gain speed, and reactions become immediate. What could once have been processed over a day now requires a response in the same minute. And in this acceleration lies a risk, the risk of dissolving into others' rhythms, losing boundaries, and ceasing to notice what truly deserves our energy. But there is another side. When everything around demands volume, silence acquires value. Self-defense is like the skill of navigating in fog, not running with your eyes closed, but stopping, breathing, and looking around. It is not about isolation, not about refusing to connect with the world. It's about not allowing external winds to control the internal fire. When there is space between feeling and action, clarity suddenly begins to emerge in this fuzzy, misty world. Where to direct attention, how to expend energy, what boundaries to set that respect both ourselves and others. Contrast helps to feel the importance. Imagine walking along a mountain path where a step to the side is a reaction. If you react to every little thing, wind, rustle, another's voice, the path becomes chaotic and exhausting. But if you allow yourself a small pause, you feel the ground beneath your feet, hear the breath of the world, choose a direction that warms and supports you. In our time, this is especially important because with time comes clarity. It matters what we pay our attention to. Energy is limited, and choice is a way of respecting ourselves. The connection with the audience here is not abstract. Perhaps you are familiar with that feeling when your heart starts to race faster than your mind can grasp the meaning. Or when in conversation, words burst forth first, and then there is emptiness and regret. Or when your phone's feed brings a wave of anxiety, and it seems you need to react to everything at once. You are not alone in this. These experiences are common, like the wind, and in them lies an invitation to be with yourself at the moment when the world demands a reaction. It is important to understand, self-defense is not about controlling emotions in the sense of suppressing them. It is about respecting one's own inner space, like a gardener who does not uproot every sprout, but carefully chooses what to give light and water. In this regard, pause works as a filter. It does not eliminate feelings. It allows us to see which of them require care and which are merely loud passing signals. This distinction is the wisdom of choice, which becomes more valuable with age. The metaphor of day and night helps to feel the tone. Some things demand immediate light of response, while others require patient waiting for dawn. Sometimes, nighttime noise signals danger, and indeed requires attention. Other times, it is merely echoes of old stories. Self-defense helps distinguish one from the other, allowing action to arise from clarity rather than fear. It is like how a forest observes the weather. It does not react to every gust of wind, but knows when to close its leaves and when to let the rain pass. The emotional literacy of our time is a skill that helps maintain inner harmony while being sensitive to the world. When we learn to pause, we open the door to respectful communication, with ourselves first, and then with others. This slow but profound movement transforms relationships and decisions, because in the space between feeling and action, responsibility is born not as a burden, but as a choice. And this choice carries with it peace quiet but steadfast. In this series of words, I want to offer not a set of rules, but an invitation to practice, to observe, to breathe, to notice the emerging impulses and give them space without immediately turning them into action. Allow yourself to be a witness to your sensations. Trust the gentle pause in your breathing. Be present with what is happening. This is a path not of quick achievement, but of gradual return to oneself, to that inner light that leads further. Trust the moment. Allow yourself space. Emotion is not just a flash. It's like the wind over a lake. First, a barely noticeable ripple, then circles spreading across the water. Feel this movement, not as something alien, but as part of the landscape within you. It brings color, tonality, a story that the body knows more profoundly than the mind. Sometimes emotion sounds quietly, like footsteps in the grass. Sometimes it roars, like the surf against the rocks. But it's important to remember, sound itself does not equal action. Between the sound and your response, there is space that can be observed. Imagine how in the forest temple, a fallen branch causes an echo. First fear, then evaluation. Dangerous, safe, and a moment later, a decision. Remove, avoid. Often we act instantly because we were taught to react, defend, justify. In childhood, we were told, run or don't let, and this skill has been ingrained. But what if now, as an adult, you can allow yourself something different, to sit on a rock by the road, breathe in, and feel what is actually happening to you? This is not evasion, but attention to the roots of emotion. The stories we carry color our reactions. Recall a moment when a single phrase at work exploded something inside. You felt the heat, your hands filled with protest, and word by word, a storm arose. But if you allow yourself to pause for at least a breath, something amazing happens. The heat cools, words cease to burst forth, and space appears for choice, to respond with gentleness, clarify the fact, or simply remain silent and let the event pass. A small story can serve as a map. I noticed an old habit of reacting sharply within myself, and it was born in a different context. Acknowledging this means releasing tension. The practical step here is simple and accessible. Start small. When a feeling arises, pay attention to your body. Where does it live? In your chest, your belly, your throat. Give that place a name. Anxiety, anger, melancholy. Take 3 slow breaths, counting to 3 on the exhale. This is not magic, but the architecture of pause. 3 breaths create a physical gap that allows the consciousness to connect with the impulse. Then ask yourself a gentle question. What is important to me right now? And wait for the answer. This question is like a flashlight, directing your attention not to the past or the future, but to the present moment. Do not demand an immediate solution. Often, the first thing that comes is an old automatic response. Allow space for the second and third answers. Reflection is born from observation. Notice the connection between the story you carry and how you react. Observe for a few days. As soon as emotion flares up, pause and jot down what happened inside. Over time, you will notice patterns, like forest paths leading to familiar streams. These patterns need not be judged. They deserve tenderness and clarity. Awareness is already action. It unfolds the old path and paves a new one. Allow yourself to be an explorer of your inner weather. You may not change the storm by force, but you can learn to hold the bow of calm. A small spark for movement. Notice one recurring feeling today and simply remember it in the moment when it appears again. Take 3 deep breaths and trust the soft pause. Creating space means arranging a gentle gap in the dense fabric of experiences. Imagine a field after the rain, where the wind passes by, forming even stripes of light and shadow. This is the gap where everything seems to pause, and it allows you to see more clearly what truly matters. The same goes for an inner pause. It is not emptiness, but an illuminated inward interval where you can look deeper and feel the motives behind your reaction. Notice your breath, the rhythm of your heart, the image that arises, and allow this observation to be without judgment. There was a story about a woman who always responded sharply to criticism, as if an ancient shield activated inside her. One day, she decided to try a different approach. Every time she felt a hit, she counted to 5, imagining how a wave passes by a rock on the shore. During this count, thoughts, regrets, grievances would come, but she did not let them dictate her voice. Over time, people around her noticed the tone of her speech. It became slower, deeper, and many dialogues lost their sharpness. This did not mean that she stopped defending herself. She learned to defend with kindness, with an awareness of boundaries that do not tear, but protect. What can you start right now? Allocate a small ritual of pause for yourself. There's no need for complex practices. Set a simple marker for yourself. For example, a light touch to the palm, a quiet breath, or imagining a small, bright circle in your chest. When the sensation arises, use the marker and wait for 3 deep breaths. This marker acts as an anchor. It tells you that there's no need to rush. Gradually, this ritual will become a bodily skill, like walking. First you learn to step, then your body does it automatically, but with a new sense of direction. Think about the consequences. What changes when the reaction stops being instantaneous? Conversations change tone, decisions become less hasty, and the energy freed from indifferent conflicts can be directed into caring for what truly matters. It's like saving water in a drought-stricken home. When you don't spill it unnecessarily, there's enough for the plants that give life. By creating space, you manage the resource of your attention. Reflection here requires patience. Some people feel that a pause is a loss of control. Others think it is a weakness. But in practice, it's a skill, much like that of a gardener. First, you need to understand the soil. Then carefully remove the weeds, and afterwards provide the seedlings with light. The practice of pause is a respect for yourself and for those you interact with. Allow yourself to experiment. In one conversation this week, set the intention to wait and afterwards analyze what changed. Don't demand results immediately. Observe the process like a long river. An impulse for movement. Choose one pausage marker and use it during the next burst of emotion. Notice the difference in your breathing and voice. Mindfulness is not a mantra and not an ideal. It is the subtle art of presence, like knitting light on the surface of water. It does not promise that emotions will disappear, but allows you to be with them differently, gently, observantly, without submission. When you learn to notice the first signals, a tide in the chest, tension in the jaw, a tightening stomach, there arises a chance for intervention. This chance is not for fighting feelings, but for inviting them into dialogue, not into battle. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river, and the emotion is a leaf on the water. Mindfulness helps you not to grasp at the leaf, not to stir the current, but simply to watch as it flows. There is an example. A young man noticed that every message from his boss triggered an automatic desire to justify himself. He began to practice a simple technique. Before responding, pause and ask himself, what does this message truly require? Sometimes it required a confirmation of fact. Sometimes time for reflection. Sometimes nothing special. This simple habit changed the course of events. Fewer conflicts, more clarity, and he felt less torn between emotions and obligations. Mindfulness, in this sense, is like a mirror that gives distortion. The distortion is past reactions. But when the mirror is clean, the reflection becomes truthful. Practical advice. Take short intervals throughout the day to check your presence. Let it be 3 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the middle of the day, and a minute of sliding before sleep. In these moments, observe your breath, sensations in the body, turbulence of thoughts, but do not try to fix them. Your task is to become a witness. Write down what you noticed, an image, a word, an emotion, and do not evaluate. Over time, these notes will become a map that makes it easier to navigate in the storm. Mindfulness does not require great willpower. It requires regular return to oneself, like a quiet center in the noise. Reflecting, remember. Mindfulness is not a final solution, but a tool. It makes choice possible where there was once an automatic response. And this choice is not an obligation to be perfect, but compassion for your own pace. After all, it is this gentleness in dealing with oneself that creates the conditions for a stable inner foundation. When you become more attentive to your own reactions, the world around you also begins to respond differently, with respect, because you are giving yourself and others space to be. A small step to start. Take 3 minutes today to observe your breath. Let them be simple, without demands. And trust the gentle knowledge that this is already self-defense. Life is like a river that takes in hundreds of streams, but not every tributary should change its course. What to direct your energy towards is a question of priority, and it is closely related to the ability to pause. When the urge pushes toward action, it is useful to ask, will this energy go towards creation or destruction? Will this help my path? These questions should not sound like a harsh sentence, but rather as a gentle reminder that attention is a resource, and its distribution shapes the form of the day and life. There was a story about an artist who, in the early days of his career, rushed to respond to every critique and invitation. He noticed that his internal reservoir of creativity was running dry and decided to choose to remain in a cacophony or to carve out a narrow field for work that nourishes. He began to respond from within, first giving himself time to pause, then electing those projects that warmed his heart. Over time, his work became clearer, and his voice more confident, as energy became an investment rather than an expense. This choice did not appear suddenly. It grew from a chain of small yeses and nos, each accompanied by a pause and careful weighing. A practical step: create a simple priority rule. Write down 3 things that are truly important to you in the upcoming month. When the temptation arises to react to something distracting, ask yourself, does this help one of my 3 things? If yes, act gently and mindfully. If no, allow the feeling to pass and make space. This rule does not negate empathy and participation. It helps maintain clarity and focus. Remember, priorities are not rigid walls, but bridges that you build for your movement. Reflection invites you to look at the long term. What life do you want to support? One where every impulse claims attention, or one in which what is truly valued matters? The choice of priorities brings not only productivity, but also peace. When you understand where your energy flows, the constant feeling of scattering disappears. It is similar to tuning an instrument, if the string is tightened correctly. The melody flows easily. The practice of pausing and the choice of priorities work in unison. The pause creates space, and the priority provides direction. An impulse to begin. Today, choose 3 priorities and place them in a visible spot. Notice how the tone of your decisions changes after this step. In this section, there is a simple map for each day, so that pausing becomes not a rare gift, but a natural part of life. Imagine that it is not a set of rules, but a series of light rituals that can be woven into an ordinary day, like the aroma of fresh tea. They warm, require no effort, and gradually change the flavor of the moment. Morning presence ritual. Wake up quietly, not chasing a loud to-do list. Spend 1 to 3 minutes observing your breath. Let the inhale and exhale be the acquaintance of the day. If you need a marker, touch your palm to your heart, feel the warmth, and softly repeat to yourself a short phrase like, "I am here," or "Allow yourself to breathe." This is not a technique for perfection, but an invitation to linger at the start. Let this ritual take little time, but sets the tone. The day begins from within. Micro-plan for work moments. When a notification arrives, tension, or a controversial remark comes up, try to take a pause of 3 breaths. Within that window, feel your body. Name the sensation: anxiety, irritation, fatigue, and gently ask the question, what does this moment really require? Often the answer will be simpler than the initial reaction. If necessary, postpone the response for 10 to 15 minutes to let the emotions settle. This small delay saves a lot of energy and often makes communication clearer. Body anchors. Throughout the day, choose one simple marker, touching your wrist, inhaling through your nose with a slight hold on the exhale, or a visual image, a small circle of light in the chest. When the marker meets the emotion, it reminds. There is space between the feeling and the action. Try to implement this anchor in 3 moments a day, especially where the reaction was previously automatic. Over time, the marker will become a bodily habit. It gently shifts attention from impulse to choice. Short daily journals. Keep a simple notebook, not for analyzing mistakes, but as notes from an observer. Write down 3 parts. What happened? What sensations were felt inside? And what response was chosen? Or why the response was postponed. This takes 1 to 2 minutes in the evening and helps notice patterns. After a week of entries, it will be clear which situations most often require a pause and where there is a chance to change the tone of communication. Weekly mini review. Once a week, dedicate 10 to 15 minutes to review your entries. Choose one situation where the pause worked and one where you wish you had acted differently. Allow yourself gratitude for the steps taken, even when the result is not ideal. This is not a report to someone. It is an act of supporting your own practice. Sometimes it's helpful to note a small reward: a cup of tea, a walk, quiet music, as a reminder that paying attention to yourself is rewarded with warmth. Tracking progress without pressure. Keep a soft journal not for evaluation, but for observation. You can use a table with 3 columns: situation, reaction, feeling after the pause. Mark more often with words instead of scores. More clarity, easier voice, less heat in the chest. This helps to maintain inspiration. Progress is rarely measured linearly. It is felt in the lightness of the voice, in the reduction of fatigue, and in the increase of calm moments. Maintaining inspiration. Allow yourself small rituals of reward and reminders. A note on the mirror with a phrase that brings you back to a warm pause. A playlist of 3 calming songs for evening relaxation. A photo of a place where you want to feel gathered. It's also helpful to have someone to share observations with. This is not control, but warm support. When inspiration fades, return to simple markers. Breath, writing, gentle review, and feel how clarity returns. Micro-plan of actions. An example for the day. Morning, 3 minutes. Observing the breath and a light phrase of presence. During the workday, 3 to 5 times. Pause marker, plus 3 breaths during emotional spikes. Breaks, 2 minutes each. Checking in with the body and a short stretch. Evening, 2 minutes. Writing down 1 or 2 episodes and a small thank you to yourself. Once a week, 10 to 15 minutes. Reviewing entries and highlighting 1 small victory. These steps are not an end in themselves. They are a way back to yourself. If you want to measure, choose soft indicators. The number of times the pause was used, feelings after the pause, changes in tone of voice in important conversations. Do not turn accounting into a new source of pressure. The goal is to see growth, not to demand perfection. Let the first move be simple. Allow yourself 1 small ritual today. Maybe it's 3 breaths before responding to a message. Maybe it's writing down 1 note before bed. This is the beginning. Allow yourself. Start today. Feel the lightness of presence. It will be warm to see you there. If this path resonates, it will be nice to subscribe to the channel and like the video so we can continue together and not miss the next day of inspiration. Finally, let us weave the threads of this journey into 1 warm fabric. The self-defense we talked about is not about a lock and not about a shield. It is about the space between feelings and response, where light can pass through and reveal true boundaries. This is the path of gentle return to oneself. Not a heroic leap, and not a struggle with every impulse, but patient care that allows one to choose what truly deserves attention. At the end of the day, this feeling is akin to the warmth of a cup in the palms. Quite simple, but deeply soothing. Recall the stories about the wave and the shore, about the gardener, about the artist who learned to preserve energy. All these metaphors converge on one thing: the inner choice shapes the outer world. When there is a pause between impulse and action, the world does not become distant and alien. Rather, it begins to respond to a clearer voice. The dialogue remains alive, but its tone changes. It ceases to be a defense and transforms into care. This is not a loss of strength, but a gaining of resilience and grace. Let this conclusion carry a reminder. To be close to oneself means to allow oneself to feel everything that comes, while not letting feelings fully define actions. This is a sincere respect for one's inner life. From respect, clarity arises. From clarity, decisions that bring peace and are more beneficial for the long journey. Imagine that you are packing for a trip. You take not everything at random, but only what will warm you and help you move forward. So it is with attention. It should be packed with care. This road is not without its failures. There are moments when old reflexes win, when the voice of past experience sounds louder. This is part of the process. In such moments, it is important not to blame oneself, but to be an observer, to notice, to forgive, and to gently return to practice. Like tea that is sometimes spilled, not always perfectly, so our practice lives in imperfection. Tenderness towards oneself is the most important resource. It turns mistakes into lessons and fatigue into a signal for rest. Summarizing is not a button labeled all set, but an invitation to continue the guiding work. If we try to distill thoughts into a few key images, they will be: pause as a space of choice, marks and rituals as a bodily support, notes and overview as a map of progress, and softness in dealing with oneself as the main fuel. These elements together create not a temporary technique, but a lifestyle that preserves energy and fills days with meaning. The closing message is simple and warm. Allow yourself to be an observer of your feelings. Let the pauses become companions on the journey. When inner clarity arises, it changes the tone of communication, makes the voice calmer, and the heart freer. Even a small shift, 3 breaths before responding, a short note in the evening, choosing one priority task, gradually creates change. Let this be a reason for quiet joy. You are not alone on this path. Many walk beside you, sharing their light and caution. As I conclude, I leave you with a feeling of light presence, a deep inhale, a soft exhale, like the rustling of a page. If this path resonates with you, it will be warm to stay together. You can subscribe to the channel and like the video, so as not to miss the next meeting of light and silence. The journey continues, and in this continuation, there is hope, the quiet breath of new clarity.